Welcome, everybody, to the second hour of Mindshifters Radio. Today is Wednesday, December the 8th, 2021, and our call-in number is 563-999-3581, and press 1, and that puts you into queue to talk to us. We'd love to hear your comments and questions because that makes this your show. Give Michael a moment to get dialed in, and I will invite you once again to go to our website, whyagain.org. Click on the Start Here button, or just search around. There's a search bar on there. If there's something you can't find, type it into the search bar, and it'll bring up all the links where it's mentioned. And if there's still something you can't find, drop me a line at Jeanie, Jeanie, at whyagain.org. And let me know what you're looking for, and I'll make sure that you have a link directly to it, or maybe even put it in a more prominent place where it's more easily found. Also, the iPhone the app has not been updated yet, but the Google Play Store, the app is updated on the Android. So go out and experience the new app and see what all's going on there. That is Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness. And it'll pop up with a glowing heart, and then when you click on it and download it, you'll see mine and Michael's picture, and so you'll know you have the right app. I think it's the only forgiveness app that's out there, and it is free, totally, and it is private. So give some of those tools an opportunity to work in your life, and you'll see a change. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, dear heart, and welcome, everybody. Honored and delighted that you're here once again to be part of this conversation. We've been working the last couple of days on the Beatitudes, and it turned out that Mark wasn't available today. And since we started with him, I thought I'd just put that on hold. We're going to get back together tomorrow on that topic, and we missed the reading from the book for a few days, so we'll start there. Unless Jeanie, you've got somebody with a hand up in the phone queue or something happening in the chat room.
Nope, it is all quiet. So go for it.
Okay, cool. So we're on chapter 23 in the book. It's called The Aramaic Solution. If you're following along with us, we're at the bottom of page 156. And we're talking to Richard at this point about speech. And, I had told him some things about himself, which he had not mentioned. Specifically, I brought forward an idea that I thought might apply to his childhood. And he's like, well, wait, I didn't tell you anything about my childhood. It's like, well, if we know how to listen, we're always talking about our lives and what's happened there. It's kind of like if I look at the building materials for a building that's going to go up, I can tell a lot about the building. Not everything. Okay, I don't know what the paint surface is going to look like, but I can tell if it's a steel building or if it's a wooden building, if they're going to use, bars on the window for security. I can tell a lot about the building by the materials being used. And words are kind of like building materials. You can tell a whole lot about what someone's been building their lives out of by the words that they use. So speech is a major, major key. And people don't use words that aren't obviously in their vocabulary, and they don't have things in their vocabulary they haven't experienced. So if you listen closely, sometimes people say, well, Michael, how did you know that? Just like Richard has in the book here. How did you know that about me? I just listened to your words. That's all, if we listen carefully. And so our invitation here is, if there are things that you've hidden from yourself in your life, just listen to your words. It will give you a great deal of information. And for anyone who has the eyes to see and the ears to hear, people say a whole lot about themselves that they don't have a clue they're saying by the way they structure, by the way they build the structures that they inhabit verbally. And so Richard was a little shocked that I could tell him something about his childhood. In fact, he said, and so I'm going to just cover the last paragraph that we talked about. Again, we're on 156. So I explained to him that he didn't. He had just said to me, well, I didn't tell you about my childhood, but his story did. Almost everyone experiences their own internal reality in place of what is happening in the world. This means there is a pattern or a theme for every reality flowing from brain cells. The words coming from a mind reflect the general patterns contained in the mind of the speaker. Words of delight and inspiration reflect a way of life that's designed as life is designed to be. Angry words reflect an angry history, and sad words a sad past. And fearful or fearsome words tell a story of a mind brought up in a world that is perceived to be an unsafe world. And when we realize that and start to look into the underlying dynamics, and in essence, that's what forgiveness does. Forgiveness empowers us to literally step into our own unconscious dynamics and bring correction to those things that are not in harmony with the truth of who we are. And that would mean words based in hostility or fear. And when you apply forgiveness in a place in your life where hostile or fearful words are being used, and a lot of times when you first start pointing out to people, boy, they become so upset. They think they've been successfully hiding from the world all along. The truth is, nothing, and in fact, go back to the ancient scriptures where they said, nothing will remain hidden. Everything will be made known in the light of day. One of the first ways that our history is made known is by the words that we use and the way we structure the constructs of our mind. And so I'm working to get Richard to start to recognize that and to take responsibility for his words. So the key thought in the book here is your words show you what mind energy you're using to construct your realities moment to moment. So remembering that perception is a construct of the mind and exists nowhere except in the mind that has constructed it. You know, I use the example all the time of 6 people were at an accident. You listen in the courtroom and you wonder if any 2 of them were at the same accident. How could their words have been so different? How could their descriptions, they were all at the same thing? No, they weren't. Yes, externally, the same actuality happened, but what was triggered in each mind, the words, the concepts, the structures triggered in each mind as a result of that accident are unique and individual to each person. So once you recognize that, then you realize that a construct is reflected in the words used to produce it. And the words used to produce that construct give us a great deal of information about our history. So listening to people speak about any reality in their mind gives you a great deal of information about what has happened in their past. We reflected on the idea that the perceptual output of a mind tells you more about the content of that mind than about the object perceived. The output of a mind is always based on content that's in that mind and may or may not actually reflect the external world, the world of actuality. So just to be clear on our definition of words here. So we're defining reality, and everybody's got one. If 7.5 billion people on the planet observe an actuality, there are going to be 7.5 billion realities. Each mind is going to construct its own perception of that event. Once you realize that, then the way we interpret, the way our mind constructs events, tells us a whole lot about our own history. And if we've been hiding some of our own history from ourselves, then deconstructing our constructs and looking back at the words and the structures that are built by them can give us a great deal of insight into our history and into what needs to be healed. We reviewed the actualities from that day in the restaurant and the realities Richard's mind led him. we distinguish between the two. He had experienced the actuality of a waitress picking up a cup of coffee. His mind fed him the reality from his past that something was being taken away. If you remember, he's sitting in a restaurant, drinking a cup of coffee, and the waitress comes over and picks it up. His mind constructs a reality of something being taken away from him. What do we know from the fact that his mind structured that he's had things taken away from him in the past? That's how his mind perceives a situation. It's because that's what he has brain cells for. Now, the truth, if you remember, of the situation when we covered that part of the book is that he had on clean shirt and tie. The waitress noticed that some coffee had spilled in his the plate, the saucer for his cup. And she was getting it away from him so he didn't trip on himself. She's getting ready to give him a fresh cup of coffee. But he perceived something being taken. So his mind fed him a reality from the past that something was being taken away. We discussed the fact that his someone taking something from me reality surfaced because it was in him to be triggered, not because the waitress took his coffee. His thought that people take things from him was a filter through which he viewed life. And this was his opportunity to use true forgiveness to change that reality in his life. It's an interesting video that I happened across yesterday, and it was a gentleman named Michael Robinson from the University of Hartford, who's an historian, and and this is something we'll probably use forevermore. You'll hear this often, but he created a thing he calls the Mr. Magoo hypothesis. Now, if you remember, Mr. Magoo, I don't think those cartoons are around anymore, but Mr. Magoo was a cartoon character, an older gentleman who, in the cartoon, who was myopic. He couldn't see. He couldn't see an inch in front of his face. So he wanders through life in the cartoon thinking he's in one place when he's in a totally different circumstance and situation, and he bumbles his way through interpreting the situation, that the actuality that he's in, through the filter of the realities he expects. And so it makes for some hilarious cartoons. It's after listening to him, this historian describe that, I went back and went on YouTube and searched for a couple of Mr. Magoo cartoons. And I saw that when I was a kid, but I never realized what it really meant. It was just kind of a goofy thing. But when you look at it, it's really very profound. This cartoonist, and I'd say many a true word spoken in jest, this cartoonist produces this character who walks through his life with no clue where he actually is, because his visual receptors, his perception is shut down, and he thinks he's somewhere. He has a particular goal in mind, and he interprets the actuality that he's walking through as though it is the reality that he thinks he's in. And, it's really worth going back and just watching a couple of those cartoons and realizing that that's what that cartoon was really about. I probably haven't seen one of those cartoons in, I don't even know, 50 years. So I don't recall how I saw them 50 years ago, but I do remember watching those cartoons and how goofy it was. I don't know. I don't believe I had any insight into, he thinks he's living in one reality when he's in another. And the experiences that happened to him. But most people are just like Richard in this situation. Wherever there's hostility or fear, what your mind will do is it will structure your reality according to that hostility and fear-based perceptual construct, rather than an accurate construct that's true about the actuality of the moment. And it makes this just about as silly as Mr. Magoo. If you remember, Richard's sitting in this restaurant, and he picks up his coffee, or he's going to pick it up, and the waitress comes over and kind of hurriedly takes it away. his reality is being taken away, and he goes into a kind of a little rage at her. And she's like, look, Mac, all I'm doing is trying to save you from getting your white shirt covered in coffee. There's coffee here. I'm getting you a fresh cup. Most people live like Mr. Magoo, and they'll keep insisting beyond any reasonable doubt that their perceptual construct of the moment, which is a total reflection of something that maybe happened a decade or 2 or 10 decades ago, they'll insist that the construct of their mind is accurate about you, when the truth is the construct, where there's hostility or fear, is only accurate about them. Again, the idea that it surfaces because it's in us. He thought that people take things from him, or pardon me, his thought that people take things from him was a filter through which he viewed life. This was his opportunity to use true forgiveness to change that reality in his mind. He was dismayed and excited all in one breath. I didn't know my words made me that transparent. And I'm getting a sense of how you figured me out. How did you know I used to ignore my sister and fight a lot, he asked. Well, recall, you said when you attacked a waitress without her having a chance to explain, you would likely attack that quickly only if you'd built a reality that says something like, attack first, don't listen. If you listen, you will lose. It's a common realities in families where parents play favorites. That's painfully close to my relationship with my sister, he said. Why don't you tell me all about me, he asked. Well, you'll notice, Richard, that I'm checking out what I'm hearing from you. That's an important step in this process. When I hear your words, I can only hear them for what they trigger in me. My meaning for your words might be totally off base. The key is what your words trigger in you, not what they mean to me. I always work to keep my insights and feedback in the form of questions so I stay on track. I'm here to support you looking into your issues, not mine. And it's really sad that a lot of therapists are therapying themselves. They're therapying their own reality structures through their client. They're not therapying their client at all. So, Richard, I'm not here to, he wants me to tell him about his whole life. It's like, Richard, I'm not here to tell you anything. Words are a topic we could spend hours on. In fact, in our Laws of Living Intensive, we do. A good practice is to observe the words you speak. If you see yourself using words that are not in support of what you truly want to create in your life, use the tools to change your reality structure and your speech. Key thought? What do you believe about yourself to create what's happening in your life? Not sure? Listen to your words for clues. And so Richard asked me the question, do you have any thoughts about a topic for your worksheet? Or pardon me, I'm asking Richard that question. Is there anything in particular that you want to work on? So that closes out and completes the Aramaic Solution, Chapter 158. And you'll notice we outlined a couple of tools there. And one, of course, looking at your words, and then looking into the forgiveness process. And remembering that forgiveness is a tool with which you collapse perceptual constructs in the mind based in hostility or fear. You get to access and process through the underlying original events where the hostility or fear was generated. You get to dissolve, to weaken, to remove literally the energy fields from brain cells that hold unresolved pain. And as you do that, you get back to the truth of who you are. And the whole object of this work, is to live somewhere else other than the Magoo hypothesis. To really, truly live in the present moment, experiencing actuality for what it is, rather than working through perceptual constructs from the past and pretending that the perceptual constructs of your mind have anything to do with or are in any way, shape, or form accurate about the present. Because most of them simply are not. They're simply false. So, Miss Jeannie, that finishes chapter 23, and I was going to go into 24, but I thought I'd just check with you first and see if we've got anybody in the phone queue with a hand up or anything happening with the chat room. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead with a little more work from chapter 24. We're down to less than a month now to finish this last chapter on forgiveness.
There's no hands up, and it's all quiet. So go for it.
Cool. Well, then we're going to move to chapter 24, which is the bottom of page 159. And why is this happening to me again? And by the way, we can't sell you a copy of the book because they're out of print. However, if you would like to access the book, there are a couple different ways to do it. You can go to Amazon or eBay. Way back 25 years ago when we printed this, there were several tens of thousands of copies that went out all over the globe. And so there are enough of them around yet that eBay has lots of them on sale used, as does Amazon. So you can always pick the book up on either of those sites if you want to order a copy. And sometimes there's a little as a couple of bucks. Brings up embarrassment for me when I think about my book selling for $2 or $3. But hey, that's my issue. In any event, the other thing you can do is you can go to our website. There's actually two other ways to access the book. You can go to our website and you can download the book free. It is the current printed version in any one of several different languages: Farsi, English, German, Russian, Spanish. The book is in Swedish, but we don't have a copy of that one. That's the only version we don't have on our website. And I've been pursuing the publisher of that. We had an agreement with that if they stopped printing the book, that the copyright would revert to us. But the publisher's disappeared now. But anyway, I think we've still got a couple of copies of the book in Swedish. And so you can download the book free. Or if you want an updated version, we've only printed the original version. We've done, 3 or 4 printings of the original version. And there is a new version that is in the CD form that you can stream from our website, or you can buy the CD package if you want, that also has an MP3 on it, so you can play it on your radio or your phone or what have you. And so if you look in the catalog, you'll see Why Is This Happening to Me Again, book on CD, or streamed book. And that is a new version. It's updated from the original printed version that we've been working with for this past year. So if you want to access the book, there are the different ways to do it. Of course, the download from our website is free, whyagain.org. Amazon, eBay, 2, 3, 4, 7. We've actually seen a couple times people have had it listed on eBay for $6,000 or $7,000. It's like, boy, I should reprint this book. But anyway, so there are ways to get a hold of it and read along with us, or you'll find that sitting and reading the book in one sitting. I've had several people who've like, Michael, I've read that book 15 times now, and I'm finally starting to understand it. And I know that personally, with the fact that I wrote it and I rewrote it, the version that you can get the audio CD on, that probably goes back now 20 years or so. That CD was done before we met, wasn't it, Jeannie? Do you remember? Was that something that
yes,
Graham and I worked on after it was before we met? Yeah, so it's 20 years ago anyway. Thank you for being in my world for so long, dear heart. Take a moment to just breathe into and appreciate you. In any event, you can ask us in any one of several ways. And actually, I just had I'm communicating with a book study club in England. It has a couple thousand people that do different book studies, and they're looking at taking the book up as a study too. In any event, let's look at Work It Out with Your Best Friend, Chapter 24. So the bottom, or on page 159. I asked Richard, do you have an idea of what you'd like to do the worksheet on? He says, where do I start? Well, the best place to start is to be clear on what you're doing and why you're doing it. The people who really use these worksheets tell me that they become the best friend they ever had. Note, the emphasis is on using the tool. What the process does is give you an opportunity to confront directly the parts of your mind and life that don't work for you, the parts with which you might sabotage yourself. And I feel a little resistance to that thought, Michael. No, you're not alone. Nobody wants to feel their pain until they understand. Understand what? Richard says. Pain takes a toll even when it is not consciously felt. How so? Recall our discussion about pain. Pain is the reflection of a stored destructive energy. When people deny and restrict access to pain, the only thing they've accomplished is keeping out of direct sight. Keeping their pain out of direct sight. Hidden or anesthetized pain is not removed from experience through denial or drugs. It is felt as the aches and pains of aging, what people call aging. The twinge of emotional upset that floats in and out of our experience, the irrational outbreaks that destroy relationships, the quote-unquote accidents that occur, headaches, body aches, degenerative diseases, and the 1,000 irritations that subtract from the possible quality of life. So you can pretend that there's no pain to resolve, but if you're experiencing these things I just described, guess what? You're playing in the realm of dissociated pain. You've hidden something, but the degenerative effects go on. When you access whatever that energy is, when you pull it out of tissue and you transmute it through the presence of love using the forgiveness tool, then the tissue structure is relieved of that burden, and those symptoms that we just spoke about tend to disappear. There's an old saying that the brave die once, the coward 1,000 times. When you're fortified with actual tools to face and heal whatever is hidden, trauma and pain are dismantled and removed from life. As you do this work, you will find your enjoyment of life, your sense of well-being, and your aliveness will increase in proportion to the amount of forgiveness that you do. In the past, if life was lived without tools, most found that facing an old trauma meant reinforcing it and being powerless to change. The true forgiveness process changes all of that. Shift happens. The issues in life can be faced and healed. Okay, Michael, I see the why of doing the reality management process, but I'm not sure I understand the what. The what is very simple. If someone triggers anger, fear, rage, hate, vengeance, gossip, or any other disintegrative reality in you, it is your opportunity to heal yourself, not by letting them off the hook. So when we're talking about forgiveness, never forgive anybody for anything. Never attempt to forgive yourself for anything. Apply forgiveness to the pained realities in your mind, in your physiology, and remove them. Then you'll be doing actual forgiveness work. So it's not about letting them off the hook, but by changing the pain-producing reality in your mind. Whatever your experience of life is, every reality in your mind is changeable. You cannot directly change what happens in the outer world. People become frustrated and uptight when they continuously try to control life. The way to change the outer world is through indirect influence. By changing the realities in your mind, you shift your whole energy field. When you do, the whole pattern of your life shifts. And the ripple effect changes everything you attract. If abundance is your issue, pennies turn into dollars. The traditional translations of the scriptures speak of the fall of man. In the Aramaic, that text refers not to a fall, but instead says man forgot how to live in abundance. Heal the poverty realities in your mind. Whatever the form of poverty, whether it's relationship, money, work, joy, health, or abundance, and a change in outer circumstances is pulled in automatically through the law of resonance. Okay, I understand what we're about to do. Now I pick a topic. What kind of topics are fair game for a worksheet? Richard, you can do a worksheet on any person, place, thing, or event that resonates a painful reality in you. It can be a present moment event or something from your past, or even your future anticipated events. You can also use your own emotions or yourself as the subject of a worksheet. Oh, I could do a worksheet on conflict with women. I've had a conflict with my mom, my sister, and almost every woman with whom I've ever had a relationship, including waitresses. Well, that covers a lot of territory, Richard. I would suggest you be very specific and choose a mildly disturbing topic for your early worksheets. A narrowly defined subject will produce the best results, I recommend. Also, forgiveness, like any other skill, is developed through practice. The first time you use this tool, it's best to start with something a little easier than your biggest issue in life. Your lifelong issues tend to have a lot of unconsciousness attached to them, and it is best if you can start with something small enough that you can stay relatively conscious. As you build your strength through doing the reality management sheets, you can move to the bigger issues or situations in your life. So, it's like the forgiveness muscle is something that most people have never used. They've been taught the lie that forgiveness is about you. You did something terrible that caused all of this pain inside of me, but it's okay. I'll let you off the hook because you made this pain inside of me happen. That's the traditional story that the world lives in. Actual forgiveness has nothing to do with that story. It's a very destructive story. And to think you could possibly forgive anyone is a grave error. And when I say it's a grave error, what I mean is because you've projected the root or the cause of your pain onto your brain's image of someone else, you're always externalizing the cause. And by externalizing the cause, it's kind of like the Mr. Magoo hypothesis. By externalizing the cause, you live in a world, the actuality is, this is inside of you, it's yours, you're doing it to yourself, but you walk through the world like Mr. Magoo, and you think they did it to you. And the projections are just ludicrous. So when we wake up and understand what's really going on, that's where a change happens. And so we're looking to create support for an understanding that that kind of change is a natural thing to have happen if you've got the tools with which to bring it about. And our whole purpose, the reason we've been carrying on this conversation for 10 years on this radio show, 5 days a week, an hour a day, all the archives are there if you want to go listen. The reason we're doing it is to assist people to get out of the Mr. Magoo syndrome, to stop clutching through the world like somebody else is the problem and recognize the truth. Understanding where you truly are, you can change what's going on. But if you don't understand what's really going on, where you truly are, then it's the impossible dream to bring correction. So forgiveness is the key tool for correction. And we're here to support on as deep a level as we possibly can the understanding that forgiveness is this inside job and that you can move through literally every painful reality that your generational patterns have learned to produce. And oftentimes the things that people will end up working on, they'll realize, or sometimes they won't even realize it, that there are issues that have been going on in the family bloodline maybe for centuries, passed on, environmentally projected and re-experienced over and over and over again. So throughout the rest of this month, we'll go through this full chapter on how the worksheet process operates. If you would like to print the worksheet off so that you can follow along with us, go to the website, whyagain.org. And in the upper left-hand corner of the home page, or actually every page in the site, you'll see a link that says Start Here. Click that link. Scroll down, and you will see a list of reality management worksheets. There are several different versions. It's something that developed over a period of about 40 years. We've been relatively constant now for about the last 4 or 5 years. There have been only a couple of significant changes in the last 4 or 5 years. But prior to that, I mean, literally, if you look at today's worksheet, you're looking at, I don't even know, I haven't even tried to keep track, but there were oftentimes major revisions 3 times in a day. So you're looking at least version, I don't know, 3,277, whatever. And along the way, some of the worksheets that we got feedback from people were particularly significant. We've kept those worksheets. It's been a matter of testing different ideas. What will people use? What can people accept? What can people hear? And so, each worksheet has a slight variation on the theme, and you can pick them up at whyagain.org. And there are actually at least, I think, 20 different radio shows where we've spent, either Dr. Tim or Jeannie or myself has walked somebody through the whole forgiveness process. So there's plenty of instructions on how to use the sheet. It's interesting, I'll oftentimes hear from people who've been around this work for some time period, and they'll say, I got this going on in my life, Michael, I need some help. It's like, well, how many worksheets have you done that? Well, I hadn't actually thought of doing anything. Oh, well, then go do some worksheets. I mean, there's a reason you're in that muddle, and it's because it's your opportunity to learn. And if you resist that learning, then you're trapped in the resistor. And it's interesting that in the ancient Aramaic language, the word Satan means the resistor, one who misleads. And when people have things going on in their own physiology and their own emotional structures, but have got somebody else to blame, just listen to the language of blame. You made me mad. You made me afraid. You hurt me. You made me sad. That's Mr. Magoo. Oh, I think somebody else did this to me, so I react to things as though somebody else is doing it to me. In the meantime, I'm walking through a world where I'm doing it to myself. And, the two realities are so dramatically opposed to each other that it's not an easy transition to move into really, truly being in full responsibility. So I invite you to take up the worksheet. And over the next few days, we'll be stepping into the steps of it and moving through it. You can, as I say, you can listen to the radio shows if you hit the Start Here button in the upper left-hand corner of whyagain.org. And scroll down, you'll see special radio shows. And that's where some of our, what we consider to be our more powerful radio shows, and the specific shows where we did a whole worksheet with someone. So those instructions are there so that you've got a guide to how to make use of this process. And, of course, if you have a question, the reason for this show is to be here for support. So if you have a question about how the worksheet operates, now's the time to push 1. That'll raise your hand. And if you push 1, Jeannie will see your hand go up in the phone queue. You will rise to the top of the queue, and she'll invite you to participate in the conversation. The other thing you can do to access the worksheet process is you can go to your app store on your phone, whatever version of phone you have, whether it's an Android or an iPhone. If you type in the words Heartland, you go to the App Store on either device and type in the words Heartland, Heartland, Aramaic, Aramaic, forgiveness. If you type that into your phone, you will find the world's only forgiveness app, created by Miss Jeannie. And she's still working on, what will be going on about 3 weeks here now to this next update. As she said earlier in the show, the Android is updated now, and she's working with the technicians in India to develop the iPhone version. So now you've got 4 different segments. You've got a kids segment with the Dragon Klingon game. You've got 2 different worksheets to work with. You've got the commitment to work with, and then there's a floating button on each page that if you're in the middle of doing a piece of forgiveness work and a question comes up, you click that, ping, send us an email. We will take your question, introduce it on the radio show, talk about it, and we'll send you back an email telling you just exactly where we addressed your question if you don't happen to be on the radio show. So we're here to support you every which way but loose. If you ask your question, we'll answer it and let you know when. So there's that in the new feature in the app. And then there's also a feature where you've got links that can take you to what events are happening, what the calendar looks like, to our catalog, to the worksheets. There are links to, and it gives you very broad access to things on our 20,000 or so page website. So it's an awesome new piece of work. Thank you, Nini, for doing that. Nini, by the way, is Jeannie's name from Aria. She calls her Nini. And so we're here to support you. And if you're in the phone queue, it'd be a great time to push 1 and let's have a conversation. How can we support you? What's on your mind? Miss Jeannie, we've got about 16 or 17 minutes left, so I thought I'd complete the monologue and leave some room for dialogue if there's anybody out there with a thought or a question.
No, we've got 15 minutes. Nobody has a hand up, so come on, someone press 1. Okay, a hand just went up. It's Dusty, area code 904. You're on the air.
Well, hello, everybody. Hope you're doing
hey there, young man. Welcome.
Thank you very much. And I want to thank you, Jeannie, for sending me the Beatitudes link. I have a dumb flip phone, and it's got about a postage stamp size a little window, and I got up my magnifying glass and at least copied it over to my computer, and I loved it. I loved how it was written. I loved everything about it, and I appreciate it. And I'm going to, I think Michael has my email, and if not, anyways, I can send you a text with my email in case you send me something else. If you could send it there, then I will actually be able to read it. But it was appreciated what you sent. Thank you.
I didn't quite understand, Dusty. Your voice is a little bit fuzzy. I didn't quite understand what it was you were asking to have sent. Are you there, Dusty?
I didn't catch it either, Dusty, are you still with us? It still shows he's on the switchboard.
If you can hear us, Dusty, we can't hear you. And your voice is a little bit. Oh, there you are.
My phone.
No, I got you.
Right back.
I can hear you now. So I didn't quite understand. Your voice was a little fuzzy. Exactly what you were asking us to send you? Sounds like there's a loose connection in your phone. You're kind of cutting in and out. We've lost you, Dusty.
He's dropped off the switchboard, so maybe he's calling back in.
Oh, hell, dial back in again. Cool. Yeah, I couldn't understand exactly what he was saying. His voice was kind of fuzzy. Going to get that man a new phone.
I couldn't understand him either.
In the meantime, do we have anybody else on the phone queue with a hand up? Or anybody in the chat room with a thought for us?
Well, it's quiet. Let's see. I think this might be. Dusty, let's try again.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. My phone is
much clearer now.
I've got a dumb phone, and it's getting dumber by the day. So,
so your request was to have something sent to you?
That is, but it seems like the phone. But can you hear me okay now?
You are now loud and clear. What was it you were asking to send you? I couldn't understand that when you said it.
Well, yes, I'm going to repeat what I mumbled or said before. Jeannie, thank you for sending me the link to the Beatitudes, and I really appreciate it. I love the way that it was worded and all that. It was, I don't know, rather succinctly put and easy to digest. I would request
that poster took me about 2 years.
What?
That poster took me about 2 years to do the translation and put together.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I literally sat with the translation and the dictionary and wrote that out until it came together. And my partner at that time had worked with the Aramaic for far longer than I had, and I'd submit it back to him, and we'd refine literally every dot, every I, every T to make sure we were as accurate as possible. So.
Oh, okay. Well, that explains why it was so beautifully done. Thank you for that.
My partner was a genius.
Well, that helps.
That helped a lot. He was an attorney, and actually he'd been in the Navy. His name was Dan McDougald. He'd been in the Navy, and in World War II, they did IQ tests on everybody in the Navy. He was number 3.
What? You mean
that's the kind of mind he had. He was number 3 in the U.S. Navy in World War II in their IQ test.
Oh my God!
So it was an awesome. I mean, we would literally, Dan and I would spend. I was in Missouri at Heartland, and he was in Albany, Georgia, before he passed, and I would spend an average of, he did this work. He worked in the prison system. He quit his law practice and wanted to really benefit humanity. So, he pretty much was starving. So I would spend between $1,000, back then when, we didn't have cell phones where we could do what we do now, I would spend between $1,000 and $1,500 a month on phone calls. And we'd sit on the phone and we'd go back and forth and chew on each idea. I mean, we literally chewed each idea and back and forth till we refined every thought and got it into a form that made it teachable. So that was a blessed time in my life.
And I appreciate that dedication because that piece reflects that kind of refinement, and I'll bet this guy made you smarter in several ways.
Oh, yeah. I'm eternally grateful to Dan McDougald. If you're listening, Dan, thank you.
God bless you, brother.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And
he was a giant.
Wow. That's That's amazing. Anyways, I have a thought about that, but I wanted to tell Jeannie, if you would please, if you send me something else, if you could send it to my email, because of my this phone only has a postage stamp. Blah 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 blah. Anyways, my email.
Right. Got it.
Michael has it, but I can text it to Michael's number again if you need.
Okay.
I've got it here. I'll pass it on to Jeannie.
Okay, great.
I've got it.
Yes,
I'll pass it on to her.
that thing, that on the Beatitudes, it makes sense now when you say how you wrote it, because it was so refined. I was going, wow, it's shiny, it's so refined. And it reminds me of when I saw Leo Kottke, if anybody remembers him from years ago, in his 12-string guitar. I was about 20 feet away from him in almost a private performance in Atlanta, and he said what I do with songs, and you too certainly did with this Beatitudes. He said, well, what I do is take a perfectly good song and beat it to death, is how he put it. And or beat it alive,
I understand it. I beat it alive.
And also, I have to tell you that I love your Mr. Magoo metaphor. I remember.
Well, I
Mr.
wish that
Magoo.
were mine, but
yeah. Well, it's worthy, and I certainly see in this little tourist town more of that going on than even just a few years ago, and I guess I can understand, but it's a great metaphor. I wish they'd bring it back in a up to date modality. That would be great. I guess, Mike, I know we're running close to out of time, but in the Beatitudes, and I don't know if this is a question or a statement, or I'm hoping that you might have something more on it, but maybe it's self-explanatory. At the very end, it talked about the source of creation, and it was Allah,
yes,
which is so close to Allah, and I wonder if that was how was that something Dan came up with, or how did that work?
That's when the original work, this goes back into the 70s, was done on the Khabour's manuscript, and it's called the Khabour's because it was found on a river in Turkey called the Khabur River.
Okay.
And that was back in the 70s. There was a group of 25 of the world's top Aramicists who worked on the translation work. And so that's where the original translation work was done. And Dan directed that as an attorney, and he used the rules of evidence from his legal practice, his legal training, to determine the veracity of what got into the translation. And then, and even when all 25 translators agreed on the meaning of a word or a concept, that wasn't considered a final or accurate translation. And the part that I played in it was, once that was done, then I would take it into the laboratory of the classroom and see if it worked, if it produced the results it purported to produce. Once it produced those results, then we considered the translation verified. And so that's the process that was done to get it to this point.
Well, that's a pretty amazing journey, and I can tell you that all those translations, everything I've heard that were that you've used in translation from the Aramaic, strike a chord with me, and I love it. I love hearing what they really meant, or close to it at least. And
I hear you. By the way, I want to make sure we accurately acknowledge where this Mr. Magoo came from, and it was actually UPA Animation Studio. It was a studio production. There's, as far as I know, there's no individual's name behind it, and the voice was a man named Jim Backus. That did that cartoon, and the fellow who came up with this idea of the Magoo hypothesis was an historian named Michael Robinson from the University of Hartford. And that's where I heard it. In his explanations, he's talking about some historical things. He says, a lot of us are like Mr. Magoo. And by the way, here's the Mr. Magoo hypothesis. And he explains. And, I can remember that cartoon, but I never remember what was really going on. But as he explained it, and then I went back and watched a couple of cartoons, it's like, oh, man, this guy doesn't have a clue where he is. And he interprets everything through this filter. And that's how most people live their lives. And it's kind of like,
right.
We talked about Rachma from the Khaboris and from the Aramaic, and it's like it's Rachma that brings us into the actuality of the moment when we do that. Otherwise, we're just walking through the world as blind as Mr. Magoo.
Right. And partly other than that look of him trying to stare at things, it's his voice that I remember, that rough thing that he did.
Yep. Right. Yeah.
As a kid, I remember from the crib listening to the radio and thinking, "Oh man, I want to be a sound effects guy when I grow up on radio."
Was that what inspired you into that field? That's awesome.
It must have been. A sound has always been just. I mean, most people are really, really, really visual, and I have a sound thing going as well. That's almost equal. Yes, I think it did, and there was a couple other things that prompted that too. But
that's pretty cool.
Yes, that was it. And if you ever decide you want to redo that, I'd be glad to try out for The Voice.
Aha.
But
cool.
UPA, yeah, I remember that now, and I don't know what else they did, but I'm still looking for Roadrunner cartoons myself, but can't find them. So.
The important stuff in life.
Yeah, the important stuff in life. Well, there was humor, and it was Billy Bob Thornton. I saw on this program that was talking about the National Lampoon, and he said it was the Lampoon that taught him that humor can more often convey the truth than any other form. Because people will listen if it's funny, And,
right.
But he was very intense about the fact that that's where he was coming from. And anyways, that aha, thank you for that
cool.
that explanation. I'm carrying that inside me now as part of my
cool
stuff.
Awesome. We're down to the last minute.
I will be okay. Well, I'm going to give you a call a little later. But anyways, thank you very much, both of you, for all this. And,
okay. One more little piece of information.
Everybody well.
Yeah, I appreciate that. But I was doing some looking up of the whole Mr. Magoo thing, and Jim Backus was the voice of Mr. Magoo from 1949 to 1989 for 40 years. It's pretty cool. So everyone, thank you for joining us. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Wow. Yep, 1949 to 1989.
I'm impressed.
Yeah. All right, blessings. Bye-bye, everybody.